as a business owner and also as a human being, it's essential to take care of yourself.
So in this episode, we're going to walk through and discuss self-care and how it looks different for each of us.
Are you frustrated by a lack of momentum in your business? Tired of putting in long hours doing what everyone says you should and still not making money? Sounds like you're ready for Lifestyle Builders. We'll help you get back on track, taking action, and seeing results. Head over to joinlifestylebuilders.com today to get started. Yes, I am excited for this topic today.
Yeah, I'm sure you are.
Probably because it was a topic that I chose.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you know what? I'm glad we're talking about this because it's something that everybody needs to be aware of, but not nearly enough people are talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just kind of kick things off here by one of the quotes that I say all the time. I can't tell you how many times I said it to you, was just like when you're on an airplane and they go through the whole like safety spiel and it's like, hey, in the event of an emergency, oxygen mask will drop. Be sure to put your mask on first before taking care of others. And I think one of the things as entrepreneurs, as parents, as just, humans, what we tend to do is get overwhelmed by trying to take care of everyone else. And if we haven't taken care of ourselves first, it's very easy to get drained and then not be able to show up not only for others, but also lead to like burnout and some other negative issues for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And I think the reason, and you said it was funny because you said it's not really talked about. I think it's actually important to clarify. It's not talked about in the right ways a lot of times because self-care has become a huge buzzword in the entrepreneurship space, in the online business space. Everybody out there is talking about self-care, self-care, self-care. But I think a lot of times it doesn't go much deeper than the surface. So you're kind of bombarded with all of these other people's expectations of what self-care should look like. And for a lot of us, it doesn't feel right. So then you don't do it. And then you're stuck in the same position as you were before you tried to do self-care. So it's kind of like figuring out what the actual definition is. And in the dictionary, it just says the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health. It's a very wide lens there.
Yeah, well, and part of it, and I think you hit on a key point, it really means whatever it means to you, and
kind of like success. When we talk about success, it's your own definition.
Yep. The challenge that a lot of people have, because I all the time, whenever I'm like working with people, one of the questions I always ask, or a lot of the questions I ask are around, themselves, their habits, their routines, their self-care. And a common response that I get back a lot of times is, well, I don't have a routine because I don't want to wake up at 5 a.m, and a response like that just goes to show what you said. It's somebody else's expectations, not yours. The whole point of self-care is to figure out what works for you so that you can take care of yourself. And the way I always describe it is like fill your cup up so then you can pour into other people.
Let's use a personal example. When that whole Miracle Morning stuff came out on the internet and I was like, oh, good Lord, I'm not doing that. And everyone, oh, do you do the Miracle Morning? What's your morning routine? What's your morning look like? And it was like constant barrage of this is what you should be doing. You should be getting up at 5 a.m. You should be meditating. You should be working out. You should be eating this. You should be doing that. And so many of us it's not going to work for you if that's not something that feels like self-care to you. And instead, all these people are trying to force themselves into it. You're just making yourself unhappier by buying into someone else's version. Now, that's not to say that it might not be really good for you. I mean, try it. You never know. But Tom and I have found that we are very, very different in that aspect. He likes waking up early. I would say he's a pretty good morning person. Like he's up, He's ready to go. He's ready to go for the day. And I am not a morning person. If you live in this household, you don't want to talk to mommy before like 7 a.m. because I'm just not a happy camper in the morning.
She is not a happy camper.
And that's even with a good amount of sleep. I mean, I have to get a lot of sleep in order to even be functional in the morning. So that's with 8 hours of sleep. I still wake up. I need my space to let myself fully wake up and be ready for the day.
Now, on the flip side, the kids go to bed and you're like ready to go.
I get my second wind.
Yeah. And so for me, at the end of the day, I don't want to think about anything, do anything. I just want to relax and do nothing, so it's important. And like a big challenge that I think people have with this, you're the type of person that you get a reaction when something like that comes up. And what often happens, because you're not alone, a lot of people do that. They're like, I'm not going to wake up at 5 a.m. Or, I'm a parent, my baby was up half the night and now you're telling me to wake up at 5 a.m. So what ends up happening, unfortunately, is that a lot of people throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Mm-hmm.
No pun intended.
No, that was a weird non-pun.
But what this really means is that knowing yourself, knowing when you're in the flow and the things that you need to do to support yourself. Because for example, one of the things that we teach everyone we work with is you should have a startup routine and a close down routine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, every person's routine can look different, but you start your day in a different way. Like I might start mine at 4 a.m. You might start yours at 8. It doesn't matter what time you necessarily start, but it's that you set that routine up for you. And you have a lot of people they're like, well, a routine's rigid and it's going to
my routine is 3 steps, but it's still there.
But it's a routine, right?
Yes.
Exactly. So the key thing here is
don't throw
the baby out in the bathwater. Make sure that you're thinking about what do you need to be successful and to be filled, and then put those things in.
Because I think we fall into that trap of what other people's expectations are, because self-care is something that you aren't really taught when you're growing up. It's not a class they teach in high school or college. Hey, here's how you take care of yourself. So you're kind of left to fumble around and figure it out on your own, in which case a lot of people seek out outside perspectives. What does self-care look like? How can I practice good self-care? Blah, blah, blah. So you're reading articles, maybe you're reading books, maybe you're talking to other people around you in your circle, and you're getting ideas like, oh, well, that's what their self-care looks like. What you have to do is remember that it's not going to be an exact science. There is no perfect definition, and your self-care may change over months, years of your life, because you're going to go through different seasons. So, you might have a miracle morning where you have 20 different steps that you take every single morning that you wake up. Then there might be seasons where you have 3 things you do in the mornings and that's it. But it's what is going to work for you to make you be a functional human adult in the mornings and feel good when you start your day.
Yeah, well, and there's definitely benefit to looking at other successful people and learning from them. So I don't want to discourage anyone from that. But what I want you guys to do when you're looking at other successful people is go a level beneath what you see on the surface and ask why that works for them. Because there's underlying principles that every successful person uses, but those principles look different for each person. So for example, my success thing might be waking up and knocking out the most important thing in the morning before the family wakes up.
Before the rest of the household is awake.
Yeah. Yours is sleeping in, taking care of yourself, getting that rest so that when you're up, you're successful. But the underlying principle there is waking up at the time that feels right for you and doing the things that get you in the zone so you can crush the day. Right? So don't look at Ariana and be like, well, I like getting up early. She's sleeping in late. So it's not going to work. Understand why that works. Well, she's figuring out what time makes sense for her to wake up and what she has to do to get in the zone. So that's what you want to take. You want to take, let me figure out my ideal time for waking up and then what steps I take. If I'm following Tom, there might be 20 steps. I don't need all 20 steps that Tom does, right? I need more than Ariana does with 3. Maybe I use 5, right? But so use the principles to then figure out what things you do to get you in the zone.
Yeah, and I think another misconception is that self-care is expensive. Because you see, people on Instagram and they're getting their facials and they're getting their massages or they're getting their pedicures or, they're in the spa or they're working out with a personal trainer or they're eating crazy, awesome, healthy meals cooked by a personal chef. I don't know. I'm just making these up as I go. But I think a lot of what we see...
I don't know who you're following on Instagram.
Actually, haven't been on there in a while.
Well,
but
I was going to say that's actually probably half of Instagram when people are portraying a certain lifestyle. And by the way, so just a little tangent before I let you get back to that. One of the coolest things I've ever seen, and I don't know if we can find it, we'll link to it in the show notes page at tomandariana.com/110. they had this like video, and it was like a picture, like an Instagram worthy picture. And then it like pans out
yes.
and it shows the rest of the room or the rest of the environment. And it's like, the picture is like a mother with the kids and they're like baking and it looks so perfect. And then it pans out and like the rest of the kitchen's a mess. And like one kid's like jumping off the table. And it's like, that's a lot of why, like, I think people struggle is when they're looking too much at other people and what other people are showing online, they don't realize the realism. Like, if you ever go behind the scenes, like, I know I'm going on tangents here. If you guys haven't seen the Fire Festival documentaries, like I prefer the one on Netflix over Hulu. But if you watch that, you'll see here's what the world was shown. And then here's what the reality looked like behind the scenes. And if you haven't seen it, you know, spoiler alert, the whole thing falls apart. But it looked so pretty on the surface. And behind, there were challenges.
Well, and I think, I mean, that's a very good analogy for self-care, because just because something looks good on paper, like, hey, massages are awesome, or I'm going to go get a pedicure, that doesn't mean it's going to be the right kind of self-care for you. Like, I love getting a pedicure, but I don't need to get one all the time. That's just going to be surface level for me. And it's not going to make me feel truly good on the inside, which is what self-care is supposed to make you do. That's somebody else's outside expectation I'm buying into by saying, oh, a pedicure is self-care. I'm going to go get a pedicure every single week. Eventually it's going to fall short and it's going to feel hollow.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, I'll tell you too, from like one of the coolest things I've been able to experience with all the different businesses that I've worked with is I get to see what things look like on the front end and what my assumptions are about this business going in. And then I get to see how everything runs on the back end. And I'll tell you, they're usually night and day difference. And especially when it comes to like self-care, a lot of times businesses or people that look like they have everything together, I promise you they don't, because a lot of the work that I do with people is helping them to deal with everything else that comes up. Like, you know, when you have success, you see, like, you know, let's say somebody has a really big launch. You see that on the front end and it's like, oh my gosh, this person has everything together. They just did this launch, blah, blah, blah. But on the back end, leading up to that, that person might have been burnt out because they were working too much. They might have been so stressed out during the launch that they couldn't sleep and they had anxiety. They weren't eating. And now after the launch, they're so fatigued. And even if the launch went well, it maybe didn't hit their expectations and now they're demoralized. So just realize that what you see out in the world and from other people should not be what you're gauging yourself against or what those expectations are.
And nobody out there has it all together. We don't have it all together. Like, don't ever I hope we're not fooling you. Like, we don't always have it together, guys. Nobody does. A lot of people can paint a pretty picture. And I think it's just, you have to remember that as good as that picture looks, somebody is probably helping them create that pretty picture. It's not perfect.
Yeah, well, and like you said, self-care doesn't have to be expensive. Like, one of the things that I think we've done over the last couple of years is really tried to like simplify things. And, you know, we spend a lot less money on like material things now. Like, so my routines, like, we built a home gym so that I can work out here during the day. You ended up going and joining like a women's only.
And my new favorite thing in the world is Zumba. And it's something that I always knew that I loved and I never made it a priority. But this year I was like, well, actually last year, technically, I was like, I want to take some Zumba classes. I miss it. It's fun. It's a workout. You meet people. It's great music. So I looked for one and I signed up for the gym, and I'm not going to lie, I pretty much haven't used anything else in the gym. I just go for my Zumba classes.
Yeah, but I mean, so what does that cost a month?
$20 a month.
All right. So one, that's not very expensive.
No.
But two, that $20 a month for what you get back from that, like, even if it was
well worth it, even if it was $100 a month.
Yeah, because here's the thing. When you take care of yourself, so many other things in your life just improve, you know. And to your point, like, you know, for me, meditation doesn't cost me anything. I ended up, I think, spending like $60 for the Headspace app just so I get more. But so $60 for a year of meditation and calming my mind and easing some of my anxiety, totally worth it. Like reading books, right? Like, so
different kinds of books, vastly different kinds of books.
But you get them for free from the library.
I do. I am well, see, this is double. I have to go on a slight tangent here. I am a very obsessive reader. I liken my reading to how people binge watch Netflix. I binge read books.
You do.
So it really does not make sense for me to buy books because we would go broke. And also we would run out of room to store them. So I figured out, hey, libraries have books. We live in a city that has a whole county of libraries that are interconnected in a county library system. So I can literally go to any of the libraries in our entire county and take out books and bring them back. So that is what I have been doing for the last year or two, is just going and getting a pile of books to binge read.
Mm-hmm. And so if you're listening to this, just realize, and I want to challenge you guys to say, if there's something that you could be doing to better take care of yourself, but you're not because you think cost is a factor, challenge yourself to say, how can cost not be a factor? And on the flip side of that, any money you spend taking care of yourself is probably going to be better money spent than anything else you do. Like we've talked a couple times about us going to a marriage therapist last year, and we're still going to a marriage therapist. And any money we put into that has come out
tenfold,
a hundredfold, a millionfold, because when things are important to you and your well-being, your physical, your mental, it's one of the best investments that you can make. So, like a lot of times, like I'll see people that don't think they can afford it or don't think it's worth it, yet they're spending money on other things that actually go against, So really, if you're not feeling as good as you want to, either physically, mentally, with the relationships, with how your life's going, realize that you can make a change and you can do it for free or very low cost. You just have to make that commitment to do it.
And on that note, I was planning on sharing a couple more of the ways that I practice self. We already talked about Zumba. We talked about reading. I also sing in a local women's choir. That's my one. I get out of the house weekly for 3 hours. So daddy gets time with kids. I get time singing. I'm also always singing in the car and shower. I love being creative, being crafty, adult coloring books. In the summer, we take walks together around our neighborhood. Not right now because it's like 20 degrees out. So I'm not even lying.
I would take a walk. But
you would. I would be freezing.
Do not want to.
I would be bundled up like the kid in the Christmas Story.
You'd be like a staple marshmallow man.
Yep. No, thank you. Nope. And then I'm trying to think, hanging out with friends and family. That's an important one. I figured out that I need my people, and talking to them works too. So I don't always have to be meeting people in person, but even just keeping up with friends and family on Voxer or on messaging.
Yep. And, a big part of it is, each of us have it differently. So for me, working out was a big thing for me, right? So whenever I can tell when I miss a workout because I'm just not feeling good. Something as simple as taking a shower every day, like in the morning, like I go through my routine. Part of it is taking a shower, feel clean, feel refreshed, like feel ready to go. I like to play video games. I used to play a lot more video games, but now, but I fit those in. And so as we're just kind of each sharing those, like going back to what we said earlier, it's not about you guys like copying what we do, but it's saying like, what is it that you enjoy? And then making sure you incorporate those into your routine, into your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think part of this is knowing yourself well enough to know what things are going to fill up your cup, what things are going to make you feel better on the inside and outside. And sometimes that's hard to know because I think a lot of us had things that maybe we liked to do when we were younger. And as we age, sometimes those things don't translate over. So you change, and sometimes what you enjoy doing changes. So it's it's a good practice just to take a personality test or kind of sit and list out all the things you love doing and maybe trying some new things to see what else is out there that you might enjoy, because it's important too to kind of keep refreshing, keep adding things in, because you don't want it to kind of get to be the same old stuff all the time, because that's a cycle that's really easy to fall into as well.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing too is, the other excuse here is, one, I don't have money for it, but the other is I don't have time for it. And one of the easiest ways to get time is to, like we've recommended this all the time, do like a time audit, like track where your time goes every half hour for a week. And one of the things you can do is look at what things am I doing that maybe, to your point, I did it before and it served me, but it's not serving me anymore. And we either reduce or we cut those things back
Mm-hmm.
to then put in place things that do serve us, do help us. And then like one of the most important things is schedule those first, right? Like I schedule my morning routine so that I take care of that before I then let other demands come up.
Mm-hmm.
And even part of that too is like putting yourself first. Like so many people let other people dictate their schedule. When you're constantly responding to email, you're letting somebody else's priorities trump yours. When you're, even answer, like people are always like, Tom, you're so hard to get a hold of. And it's like, yes, because I put myself first. So even answering like a phone call, that's letting somebody else dictate your time. Now, there's certain people that maybe you want that for,
Mm-hmm.
but I know so many people that try so hard to cater to everybody else that they end up running themselves down. So it's really important to say, where are kind of some of those lines and the things that I will let interrupt me versus the things that won't, and I'll take care of myself first.
Yep.
And then, to your point, when the cup's full, now I can go out and deal with other people or help them out.
And that's an important point to make, because there are those of us in the human species who have that personality type or those characteristics where we are thinking of other people first, and that becomes the forethought in our mind of, oh, I need to take care of all these other people. And that is a really, really hard cycle or thought pattern to break. I know, because that was me, and I ran myself into the ground using that thought, like, oh, it's okay because I'm taking care of everybody. Everyone always has to be taken care of. Everyone has to be made happy. And that's a really dangerous pattern to fall into, because you will get burned out. You will be unhappy. You will have things that are taking over your time and space and energy. So if you know yourself and you know you're that kind of person where you're putting others first all the time, start to try and identify those thoughts or those tendencies and see if you can change that cycle or that pattern into something else. Like, as Tom said, maybe it's something as simple as putting something on the calendar for yourself 3 days a week that you stick to it and it's consistent. Maybe it's having somebody else keep you accountable. Like, hey, you said you were going to go work out. Let's go work out together. Let's stay on that cycle so that you can start to break that pattern. But yes, that is something that I struggled with for a very long time. And now my Zumba is on the calendar and I don't miss it for much.
I was going to say, and it's been awesome to see you go from being burnt out, putting everyone else first, but depleting yourself, to now like a complete 180 where it's like, you've got things on the calendar. You're, like you said, doing your choir,
Yep,
which you
I don't miss choir.
enjoyed.
I don't miss Zumba.
Yep, you don't miss Zumba. But you're taking care of yourself. And like, I've been able to see the huge difference of when you take care of yourself, all the things you wanted to do to help other people, you can actually do way better now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sometimes tough to say, well, I don't have time, or like I said, I don't have money to do that. But when you prioritize it and make it, the top thing that you're going to do, you find that you end up having a lot more to give to other people around you.
Yeah. And another thing, Tom talked about doing like a time audit and seeing where your time is going. Another thing is just to kind of do a whole life audit. And are there things that you're currently involved in doing, committed to, that are giving you negative mental energy or negative mental space? Can you say no to those things? Because that is one of the biggest parts of self-care that people don't realize. Like, yes, you need to say yes to self-care, but part of saying yes to self-care is saying no to the things that aren't serving you. So I would challenge you to look at kind of where your life is right now. And if you've got things that are pulling you in all sorts of directions and that aren't improving your own health, say no to one thing, just one. And then that will start you down the path to be able to say no to some other things as well.
Yeah, I love that. And, one of the things that we always have people do and we do ourselves is ask 5 questions. What do I need to, like, once you kind of figure out what you want to do, figure out, okay, what do I need to continue doing? What do I need to stop doing? What do I need to start doing? What do I need to do more of? And what do I need to do less of? And really those last two are critical because, for example, oftentimes people find that they're spending more time like watching TV or browsing social media. And they think, well, I can't just get rid of that or I don't want to. True.
Okay.
So maybe you just do less of that, right? But by answering those questions, it really helps you get super clear on what small changes you can make to free up that space.
Well, and by giving yourself the option to, instead of having to say no to Netflix, all these people telling you that, oh, you're wasting time with Netflix, you shouldn't be watching TV. If that's something that you enjoy, don't say no to it. But as Tom pointed out, maybe you just watch less. Schedule your time in and say, okay, this one day I'm not going to watch Netflix because I have this thing that I'm going to do. And then I will let myself watch it the other day that I have set aside.
Well, and I guess the final point I'll say is don't feel guilty about putting yourself first. Like, even to that point, like I hear people say, well, like, I feel lazy if I'm just sitting watching Netflix. Well, if you enjoy watching Netflix, enjoy watching Netflix. Don't feel, bad about it, but realize watching Netflix is part of your self-care, but you don't want to go overboard with that.
Correct.
Right? So you don't want to,
too much of a good thing is not a good thing.
If you binge watch Netflix all day, every day, well, it's going to impact other pieces of your life. So don't
I don't think it counts as self-care anymore.
Yeah, exactly. But so don't feel bad, because like, especially as entrepreneurs, high achievers, what I hear all the time is like, well, there's more I could be doing.
There's always more you could be doing.
And that's the key. There's always more you could be doing. But guess what? In order to really do more, oftentimes you have to do less.
Well, and I think that's also society pressuring us. Like, everyone thinks that you have to be doing something all the time. We don't just sit anymore. We can't just sit still. And I even catch myself like picking up my phone to scroll while I'm watching. Why am I trying to multitask when I'm relaxing watching a TV show? I don't need to scroll Facebook.
Well, it's interesting you say that. There was, I think, iPhones now have them too, but Android had an app where you could it was like electronic health. And the first time I installed it, I looked and I unlocked my phone 230 times a day. And I was like,
why
what?
am I doing that?
And so just being aware of that, what I intentionally started doing was saying, well, how do I do that less? A lot of times I won't have my phone with me anymore. But times where you yelled at me because you couldn't get a hold of me.
One time, have to tell this story, I totally found him through a Google Doc that we shared, because I knew he was at a coffee shop writing for our book, and he did not answer Voxer, Slack, text message, or a phone call. So I totally found him on the Google Doc he was in. I figured out where his cursor was, and I typed in and left him a comment and said, call me.
Yep. Well, so that's a really good example of when you start prioritizing yourself. And in that time, I wasn't doing any of that other stuff. I got so much more done. I felt more happy. And, a lot of people, when they take social media hiatus or whatever else, they end up finding that they're less anxious. They're less comparing themselves to other people. They're happier, and they're more enjoying and appreciating what's around. Do this. If you guys are standing in line, the natural tendency for people whenever we're waiting is to pull their phone out. Just sit, people watch. Observe, be mindful of what's going on. And what you'll find is that it ends up helping to slow a lot of things down.
It's almost like a little mini meditation.
Absolutely.
Right there standing in line.
Yep.
Yeah. It works. All right. I feel like we have given you lots of tasks already. So let's just reiterate the actions. I'm just going to pick one. You pick one, because we definitely...
All right, so I'll start. My key one, which is probably my most recommended action, is just to do that time audit, right? Track for a week where you're spending time, and afterwards go through each thing and basically say, I'll steal from Marie Kondo, does this spark joy, right? If it does, it's something you should probably keep. If it's something that doesn't, look to either reduce it or remove it from your schedule to then create more space for more of the things you enjoy.
And I'm going to go back to the one that we talked about, saying no. So I want you to just brain dump or think about all the things that you're currently involved in your life and pick one thing that you're going to say no to give you more space to something in self-care and saying yes.
Absolutely. And if you guys want some support, not only in self-care, but incorporating that into the various aspects of your life, we'd love to invite you to join Lifestyle Builders. So this is our community. This is our training program. And this is really our coaching program to help entrepreneurs or people that are looking to become entrepreneurs grow the business they need to create the freedom and life that they crave. And a lot of what we talk about here is actually incorporated in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot more than just a business coaching program, because we actually start people out with some of those things you talked about, life, thinking about what you want it to look like, what you don't have in it now, and then what steps you have to take and what kind of business you have to build in order to be able to do that. And a key thing that we focus on is making sure that you're not overwhelmed and that you're giving yourself space. That's actually the first thing we take people through, giving yourself space to then be able to have this success and do the things that you want.
Yeah, and you can find out more about Lifestyle Builders at joinlifestylebuilders.com. All right, I know you've got a book for us today. What is it?
I do. So I've been hearing about this person, this author, for quite a while, and I had never read any of her books. And I recently just got into some of them. And I actually put a post up and I said, I've been hearing all these good things. All the books sound good. What should I start with? And, the author is Brene Brown. And the book I'm going to recommend for today is Braving the Wilderness. And Brene has written about topics of leadership, topics of self-discovery, and Braving the Wilderness is really all around that self-discovery. And what you're going to find as you go through it is more of just understanding who you are and realizing that in a lot of cases, you don't necessarily have to change to become somebody else, but you just have to recognize and become more of who you actually are. So I'm not going to give away too many secrets from the book, but if you are somebody that is interested in self-care, interested in really taking care of yourself and figuring out ways to do that, that book is a great starting point for you.
Yeah. All right, you guys, it's been another great episode with Tom and Ariana, your hosts and Lifestyle Builders.
And as always, we want you guys to remember that it's your life, your business, your way. We'll see you next time.
Bye. Hey, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you know another entrepreneur who may benefit from hearing this show, we would so appreciate you being a good friend and sharing it with them. Are you dreaming of a life of financial freedom and more time to spend with your loved ones? Want to build your business to support that dream? You need Lifestyle Builders, a mentorship program designed to meet you where you are and give you strategic and custom guidance so you can build the business you need for the life you crave. Become a Lifestyle Builder at joinlifestylebuilders.com. Are you a Lifestyle Builders podcast fan? We'd love to hear from you. Head on over to tomandariana.com/iTunes and leave us a review.